Never say never in this day and age of recruiting, but when it comes to one of the top prospects in the entire country, it's not looking the best right now for Penn State.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is a Locked On crossover to talk some Penn State football recruiting. My name is Seyko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions, teaming up with Brian Smith, the host of The Portal, the recruiting show devoted to everything portal, high school football recruiting here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So Brian is our recruiting insider. I am your credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling to bring that side of it. So we're going to talk about plenty of Penn State recruiting. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, there is potentially a doomsday scenario for Penn State football in this part of the recruiting cycle. Notre Dame, Ohio State, USC, schools are really pushing for some of Penn State's priority targets, and that's why they're at a crossroads with them, beginning with five-star, not quite a consensus, but he's one of the top prospects in the country. Certainly Penn State's probably most prioritized recruit in this cycle, I would say. Joey O'Brien, safety, wide receiver, you can play him both ways. I mean, he's talked about as a dual threat athlete, truly, out of the state of Pennsylvania. And the latest intel is not good news for Penn State at this point in time, but never say never, because O'Brien went on the record saying that James Franklin would do everything in his power to keep him at Penn State. Brian, if Penn State happened to lose Joey O'Brien to Notre Dame, that would be bad. Just to put it simply.
Recruiting is recruiting. I tell you this all the time. I'm used to the ebbs and flows from following it for over 30 years. This is the kind of stuff I'm used to. I remember when I told you when he took that visit to Oregon a month or so ago, I'm like, I'm not real worried about that. Mm-hmm. He's going to have some other visits that will really blow him away. I said, Oregon blows every kid away. This is why I said I'm not worried about what he says right now. It's because of this. I didn't know he's going to go to Notre Dame, but at the same time, I just didn't think it would be automatic. And that's why I still think even if he picks Notre Dame on Friday, it's not a lock that he signs with Notre Dame. This is a long recruitment that's been going on for a long time. He's a unique kid because of his athleticism and it ridiculous way. Like Notre Dame wants to play him at corner. He's 6'3" at least. I don't know if he can play corner at the high level and play man all the time, but even to be in that conversation puts it in perspective what kind of athlete he is. And it's tremendous. Anyway, that's the deal, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. And if it's one thing I've said on your show 100 times, it's that James Franklin and his organization as a whole at Penn State do a great job of recruiting from top to bottom, underclassmen, in-state, out-of-state, et cetera, relationship building. Are they 100% out of it if he commits to Notre Dame? No. Notre Dame's also a team that's still Notre Dame too. Whether you like them or not, they're always going to recruit everywhere. So it's not shocking. So you just got to keep plugging away. You can't worry about what one kid does either, because you and I have also talked about it's not like exactly a problem in Happy Valley at DB, and they've got a really good DB class. If it ended right now and they didn't add anybody else, they'd be in a pretty good spot. So while you don't want to lose in-state kids to Notre Dame or anybody else, don't feel sorry for Penn State either. They're not exactly hurt.
Hindsight is 2020 because we did talk about that quite a bit. Now I guess we're kind of seeing the method to the madness unfold, that Penn State did load up at defensive back because was there a chance that they could lose on Joey O'Brien? What about Khary Adams? What about Dorian Barney? Because you notice how schools are usually very particular about which commitments they take, because if they're waiting for another prospect to make a decision. So that's kind of where Penn State, I know they like to get whatever class they're in, whatever the heart of the recruiting cycle that they're in. They want to get this taken care of as soon as possible, where it makes sense to. Yes, they're going to play the long game for some of the top prospects that they're in the mix for those recruitments. Immanuel, Iheanacho, right? Joey O'Brien, Khary Adams, etc. But I can't help but think that, hey, Penn State, you had 6 defensive backs. There is a reason for it. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, there's truth in that. But at the same time, I would rather you get the bird in hand than wait on the one in the bush. That's the old saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Penn State had a feel, let's say 2-3 months ago, where Joey O'Brien was going to go. That's hard. That's been going back and forth for months.
Fair.
The Clemson visit, the Oregon visit, Khary Adams, some kind of thing. Like that stuff's hard, man. These are 17-year-olds. I have kids tell me to my face where they're going, and literally a week later they commit somewhere else. I just had it happen. So it's very difficult. With that being stated, again, Penn State, they've got Jim Knowles on the staff now as a DC.
Mm-hmm.
Last I checked, he knows how to run the back end of a defense, a very complex one at a very high level. They will be fine. The only question is, can they still get somebody that's not committed out of that group? Mm-hmm. Barney's the kid. I told you this before the show. That's a guy I think they should really go after. To my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, UGA is not really going after Barney. And for those who don't know, he's from Carrollton, Georgia.
Yes.
In-state.
Texas A&M's the leader there, I would think.
Okay.
In theory, I mean, it might be Penn State.
It could be. A&M's pretty hot on the recruiting trail. They got a lot of NIL and all that stuff.
Oh, do they?
It's a rumor. It's a rumor. Oil money helps nowadays, I've heard. But it's just, I get it if I was a recruit. But it's still a north or an eastern or a western Georgia kid going to Texas A&M is kind of weird. So we'll see. Penn State's always tried to recruit Georgia. That's not anything new. Wouldn't be surprised if they got him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got somebody else too. They've done a tremendous job of scouting. I'm not blown away or concerned about the DB thing for Penn State. I'm really not.
No, they're in a good spot, right? They have 6 defensive backs, and guys could play wide receiver at the end of the day. Joey O'Brien is just one of those players that could be the face of this class of 2026. Sure. And to lose him to a regional, Penn State's unrivaled, I get it. But then why are they going up against, and we're going to talk about it more, how they're going up against Notre Dame for a lot of other priority targets and could potentially lose them as well. Again, never say never. Things could change over. This is going to be up on a Wednesday. He commits Friday, June 20th. Things could change by the time Friday rolls around. He's going through. I mean, Clemson could make a push. Oregon could make a push. But I really do think it is down to Penn State and Notre Dame, where Notre Dame is in the driver's seat. They have to feel really good about where they are. With Penn State losing this recruiting battle, it could create a bad domino effect, a detrimental domino effect where, okay, one prospect from Pennsylvania goes, could others follow? He has a teammate in Grayson McKeogh. That's somebody that we're going to talk about in due time on this show. That is a premier offensive tackle that has a lot of upside and potential. Could you lose him as well to the same school? When he's 6'4", 180, can play both sides of the football, could be a star safety. He could also be a contributing, maybe he's the star wide receiver that Penn State's missing for the next 3-4 years.
That was my thought too, because that's the spot that everybody needs nowadays.
He could have played both ways at Penn State. And if Notre Dame's plan is to play him at corner, maybe they move him to safety. I mean, it sounds like Penn State, really had a game plan for him, and that wasn't enough to get this one across the finish line.
I just think this is par for the course for recruiting. Like, you're going to swing and miss. I mean, I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard about Saban being mad that they missed on a recruit. By the way, they didn't miss a lot. But if you're really good, you're still going to miss because you swing a very wide girth of elite prospects. You're going to miss more than you hit. That's just the math on it. Like, you're going to offer 100 kids, you're going to sign 20 to 30. It's not a very good ratio. It just happens that Joey's one of them they're not going to get from all the intel we're getting. That's just the way it is.
I will be cautiously optimistic and say never, but
Oh, absolutely. You should.
Notre Dame should feel good about where they stand. Penn State should not. Let me just frame it that way. Again, things could change Thursday, Friday, who knows, leading up to his commitment. But June 20th, with time running out, Penn State's got to do something because this really could have serious ramifications. We're not talking about just Joey O'Brien. Penn State is at a crossroads with other top targets that could create this reverse domino effect that does not benefit the Nittany Lions. We're going to talk about that and more coming up here on this crossover episode. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. You'll get surprising insights. When I started using Monarch for myself, I just realized how much I was spending on things like package deliveries, groceries, or subscriptions. Now I get to budget smarter and save more. You get the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. You'll also get easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for, get this, 50% off your first year. That's right. Over at monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, so Penn State is at a crossroads with not only Joey O'Brien, but there's the rumor, I guess, the smoke that Khary Adams would, in theory, potentially follow Joey O'Brien. They seem to have a working relationship with one another, that this was a package deal for, well, not Clemson. It seemed like Khary Adams wasn't a big fan of Clemson based on some social media posts, but they went to Notre Dame together on the official visit. Oh, that's really bad if you're from Penn State's perspective. But the idea was that they were going to go together. There's also Dorian Barney with Texas A&M making a push. And then Luke Wafle. Oh, we also mentioned Grayson McKeogh earlier. And there's another tackle prospect that Penn State seemed to be the strong favorite here. Not unranked, but really unknown to this point in time in the recruiting cycle. And Notre Dame just offered him. So, Brian, there's a lot of angles that we're going to attack this from. I think we do need to continue with O'Brien and the players that are in the closest proximity to him, Khary Adams and Dorian Barney. If I'm Penn State, I have to find a way to land at least one of them. If you can prevent Khary Adams going with, and that's not why Khary Adams is going to, if he were to go to Notre Dame, that's not the reason. Oh, Joey O'Brien went there, so that's exactly where that I'm going. But it is certainly a benefit here. You have to be able to try to break that bond if you are the Nittany Lions, if it is strong enough for O'Brien to pull Khary Adams with him. And then you get that secondary dynamic duo that a lot of schools would love to be in that position just to even entertain. And it was really Penn State and Notre Dame as the only ones that were.
That's a wild recruitment, and one that I haven't been as involved with. Like, I've never met Khary, but I love his film. He's top 5 corner nationally, in my opinion, even though he's very raw.
Easily.
Yeah, he's super, super athletic. He's long. He's got all the attributes that you're really, really looking for. But at the same time, the guy that I was just curious to see what would happen with his visits was Khary, because I thought he was the one that could go anywhere. For a long time, I thought he would end up at Oregon because they recruit the East Coast so well, and he was a kid. It didn't seem like he was floating any specific place, and then started hearing Penn State more. I don't know if he just fell in love with the visit, or if there's some, I have no idea. Again, I don't have any insights into him. I don't have anybody around him, and he goes to a program I'm not that familiar with, but that's a great prospect. He's a lockdown corner long-term.
Yes, he could be a boundary corner that I see as a CB1 in Penn State's defense.
Yeah, I think he's a 3-and-out kid. He's an NFL player. There's no question. I like him better than I do O'Brien, personally.
And that's saying something. We let off the show with Joey O'Brien and Penn State. These guys are in the top 3 of their theoretical big board, right? Penn State has a projection of recruits that 20, 25 players that they would really like to take. And they do, there is a pecking order. There's a ranking to this. Joey O'Brien's going to be at the top. Khary Adams is going to be at the top. You could probably argue that it's a 1A, B, and C to an extent, right? Kevin Brown, even though he is committed, but when we're talking about uncommitted prospects, that's who's remaining at the top of Penn State's list as far as who they want to get. So Khary Adams moves into the spotlight as just a defensive back in general, just a guy that is purely great at football. Okay. If you wanted him to play wide receiver, you could probably get him to play wide receiver, but he's a cornerback first and foremost. I'm not trying to imply that he's a two-way player. This is a cornerback, just above all else, a quality football player that you want as a face of your class of 2026. Okay. And then there's Dorian Barney. You like Dorian Barney a lot. I do as well. Kind of the same thing. If you're going to lose out on a priority defensive back, potentially too, do you put all your chips towards Dorian Barney? You almost have to at that point, because he is somebody that borders on. He's not a 5-star, but
He's good.
Some plays, he does make a case to be one.
Yeah, and he plays at Carrollton High School. That's a program I'm very familiar with. I go there every year.
Great program.
Yeah, that's where Juju Lewis, and they've had kids all over. They got a kid from that program right now that's, at Georgia. They got kids Florida State. They got all over the country. That's where you want to recruit if you're Penn State in the state of Georgia. That's a great stopping point and even a starting point. So if Penn State gets him, that stops the bleeding a little bit. I'm curious to see what he thinks of the visit to A&M. Again, he's a kid that lives 30 minutes from the Alabama-Georgia border, north part of Georgia. I don't know if that'll work real well, but we'll see. Penn State's interesting because now that you've got it, not just a good defensive core, arguably the best in college football, you could at least make that conversation.
I'd say he is.
Jim's a great coordinator. Conservatively top 5 by any measurement. Even if you hate Penn State, come on.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a hard sell. Especially they're going to have every year now, Penn State's to the point where DBs are going to be going to the NFL. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's that hard. So, again, like I said with O'Brien at the beginning of the show, whether they do or they do not get Barney or any of these other kids right away, Knowles being there with the way Penn State's defense should be this year, I would imagine they have a chance to flip some kids too. It'll be a really wild ball, by the way, especially with the house settlement coming in and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do not be surprised. That's a whole nother subject that we'll get to soon enough. Let's let it happen first. But I think Penn State will end up with more DBs than a lot of people think.
The last prospect that I want to address here before we're going to talk more about this Penn State Notre Dame battle and the potential of the recruiting doomsday from Penn State's point of view. Luke Wafle, kind of that segue into that doomsday. I mentioned him on a previous show that I did solo, talking about how, hey, USC, really good visit, strong impression. He's being recruited by Texas. He's being recruited by Florida. Somebody in the middle of New Jersey has a nationwide recruitment, which means he is a top-tier prospect, to say the least. Well, this seemed like a shoe-in type of commitment for Penn State. Owen Wafle, defensive tackle, transferred from Michigan, now at Penn State, older brother. Penn State's had a long-standing relationship with the Wafle family. This isn't just subjective to Luke. This is objective to the Owen Wafle, Luke Wafle, and I think he has another younger brother as well. So the Wafle family, Penn State has a really strong relationship with the Wafle family. With that being said, what looked like, hey, it's just a matter of time, turns into, oh, is this 50-50? Is there a chance that they could lose somebody that, we want to mention Kevin Brown, we want to mention Joey O'Brien. Luke Wafle's in that same conversation of those top tier prospects on this big board for Penn State. They could lose him to USC.
USC's recruiting this year has been insane. And in case you didn't know, they have the number 1 class for anybody out there. Off the top of my head, it's either 6 or 7 are D linemen. At what point are they just going to implode at the seams? I know they haven't done well in the training. Well, that's not a secret either. Mm-hmm. But why would you join that? And I'm not nothing against SC or anything like that. It's just for the love of mankind. So I don't know. In a Jersey kid, that would be surprising to me. But he's a great player. So they're making a run at him. And I would bet you money that there is a lot of money involved in his recruitment because I don't think they'd have a shot otherwise. I really don't. Jersey kids aren't going to go to SC very often. That's
for no reason, right?
Yeah, if they had been in on Wafle's recruitment at this point last year, and he went to camp, went out to LA with his family, okay. But May, June, I'm not buying it. So I'm curious to see if that comes to fruition. But hey, USC's been rolling, so I won't count them out either.
Now we get to the possibility. Maybe is it likely? A recruiting doomsday for Penn State. Well, there's Joey O'Brien, Khary Adams, Dorian, Barney, Luke Wafle. There's still more prospects that potentially could not go in the favor of the Nittany Lions. We're going to wrap up this crossover episode with just that here after the break. So we mentioned those prospects that are trending away from Penn State. Even if Penn State does slightly lead, the odds have gone against them. Let's just say that. So they might, in theory, lead for Luke Wafle, but it's not as strong of a lead as it was. And the same thing goes for not just these prospects, but there is another handful of prospects, Brian, that we have mentioned for a long time. I think even back to last year when we were projecting further out to 2026, guys like Grayson McKeogh for example, offensive tackle teammate of Joey O'Brien, somebody, Tyler Merrill, who is a Notre Dame commit in the process, but somebody that should have been a priority. He was ranked really high early on in the state of Pennsylvania, could go to Notre Dame. So this is the part of the show where the recruiting doomsday is not only missing out on these prospects, but who you're missing them against. Who are you missing? Who are you losing them to? Well, Notre Dame could potentially get a 4 prospect sweep against Penn State. Joey O'Brien, Khary Adams, Charlie Tom, who we actually mentioned in an official visit preview as a rising offensive tackle, somebody that Penn State found, was pretty much unknown in this cycle. And Notre Dame makes a late push and now seems to be trending in that direction. And then Grayson McKeogh, as we just mentioned. 4 prospect sweep could all go to the Fighting Irish and not Penn State. And I'm just getting started. But Brian, I want you to interject here what it would mean for Penn State to lose not 1, not 2, not 3, but potentially 4 prospects all to the Fighting Irish because of the Orange Bowl, because of a 3-point loss. Does Notre Dame really have that much leverage here?
I don't think it has a lot to do with the Orange Bowl. I think that gets misconstrued. Does it help? Sure, but that's not what it is. Mm-hmm. Culture, relationships, those are what win recruiting battles. That's always been the case. That will always be the case. There were years where Penn State kicked the crap out of Notre Dame and Notre Dame beat them in recruiting and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's relationships. Notre Dame just won this round. Penn State, there's a certain running back named Singleton that Notre Dame thought they were getting. He signed with Penn State.
Drew Aller?
Drew Aller is a kid that Notre Dame offered. He ends up like this stuff goes back and forth, man. So it's not
appreciate you bringing that up.
I mean, it's just true. Like I know that everything in today's society is about what's right now. It's what's in December on the 3rd that matters. The totality, not 3 or 4 players. And Penn State fans are probably stinging because Notre Dame beat them last year. Okay, I get it. But that has nothing to do with recruiting. It really doesn't. I'm sure they're going to use it and say, we beat them. But if that's the reason you pick Notre Dame or Penn State or whatever, that's probably not the greatest judgment either. You need to pick where you're going to school, who's going to be coaching you, who's going to be teaching you. And that's what these people are. Like, I don't think that that's what it is. Penn State has a great, not a good, a great recruiting operation. They'll be fine. But it's just kind of random that the kids are all making the same decisions at the same time. If this was like one kid every 2-3 months, we wouldn't be having that conversation at all. It's just that everything's Notre Dame right now. It sounds like we don't know about Adam. Like, I don't know where he's going, but we'll see. And I don't know much about the Tom kid, but it sounds like he might go to Notre Dame. This is new to me. So let's see if it actually comes to fruition.
Well, and like I said, that's why, it's just the Penn State Notre Dame battle, right? Penn State won the round a few years back. I guess it's been 4 years, right? Since Drew Aller and Nicholas Singleton. Geez, how much time flies. But in the present, this is a clear gut punch. This is a direct punch by Notre Dame, really capitalizing on the momentum, maybe not directly because of the Orange Bowl, but you also get a second follow-up win. Hey, we beat you on the football field. Now on the recruiting trail, we really got you. So that's got to feel good for Marcus Freeman and company. And for what it's worth, J1 Sider's over there, even though he's the running backs coach, right? But he's a part of that operation now. Here's where it also does not help. Okay, so there's that group of prospects, but Immanuel Iheanacho would be really nice, even though Penn State is going to have to try to overtake an Oregon or an LSU. We know Auburn's out of the picture for silly reasons, of course. And then Luke Wafle potentially being one of those, hey, this is a shoe-in prospect. Just it's a matter of when, not if. And now it's progressively turning into an if. And then Jackson Ford, somebody that's kind of lightly talked about. I don't think he's talked about enough. This is a player because I think he's a middle of the road prospect according to the recruiting rankings. The tape certainly doesn't show that. So ignore the recruiting rankings, but he's a lower end 4-star. He's, I think, a fringe top 10 prospect in the state of Pennsylvania. Well, then why is Ohio State pushing for him so much? All of these guys that were Penn State favorites, strong Penn State leans, about 6 months to 12 months ago, hey, they're in a really good spot for these players. They're in-state prospects. There's no way they go anywhere else. And now we get here to the present, and it's not only going from good to bad, it's going from bad to worse at the present.
Well, I mean, anytime Ohio State goes after a defensive lineman, especially with Larry Johnson, those guys, I get it. But we'd spoken about this young man maybe 2 months ago on Locked On Nittany Lions. I can't remember how long ago it was. I thought he was pretty good on film, but like he wasn't ranked super high. I don't know if he doesn't go to camps, whatever. It could be for a million reasons, but I was surprised he didn't get more love. Why a school like Ohio State, which obviously is not that far from Pennsylvania, hadn't offered earlier is a bit surprising to me, to be honest. Pittsburgh, Penn State, Ohio State, those schools should offer early to that kind of kid. I don't know. But if you lose recruits to the team that won the title and the team that came in runner-up, that's one thing. Like, it's not like they're losing kids to Rutgers here if they don't get them. Like, seriously. Mm-hmm. Then if you call me and say Rutgers has taken a top 5 kid in PA, we'll have a bonus episode that won't be very friendly. But that's not what this is. So let's see where the kid goes to. You never know.
I guess you can make sense of this, right? At the end of the day, hey, you're not losing to schools that you should. At Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, they make sense more or less. But here's where we'll finish, Brian. It still puts Penn State in that perennial 10-2. This is 10-2 behavior. This is 10-2 outcomes that, you got prospects that you were able to beat the likes of a Virginia Tech or a Georgia Tech or Rutgers, right? Schools that you should definitely beat in recruiting. But hey, you get into the ring with Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon. You lose to them not only on the football field, but on the recruiting trail. And being stuck in tier 2, because that's where Penn State's trying to go from tier 2 to definitively tier 1. That's what they want to do on the recruiting trail, on wins and losses. And Brian, I know what you're going to say. The only way to do that is to fix it on the football field. How you fix all of this? You beat Oregon in the whiteout in September. You surprise the nation and go into Columbus and defeat Ohio State. And then the conversation completely changes. All it takes is 2 wins. That's really all it takes. And Penn State can be in that tier 1 conversation.
I think they're already in the conversation, but to get over the top, you got to win at minimum the Oregon game. Ohio State winning there is rough, although they got a lot of newness. They might be the best team in the country.
There's a window. There's a window to do it.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, it better be this year. Because next year Jeremiah will be a junior and they'll have an experienced quarterback. So if you're going to beat Ohio State, it's actually probably easier this year, even though it's in the shoe.
Easier. More doable. It's more realistic.
Yeah, because there's nothing that you can do to replace reps other than to get more reps. So in another year, like I would not want to play Ohio State anywhere. I don't care if it was in James Franklin's backyard. So it's just something they have to find a way to do. I'll make a prediction now. If Penn State, let's say they win one of those 2 games, I don't know which one it would be. Well, whatever. They'll flip somebody that we're not talking about right now, or they'll flip one of the guys that they are talking about, because that's recruiting. Especially in this era, you're going to lose 3 and gain 3 is my generic rule for every school. Georgia, Bama, LSU, everybody. Mm-hmm. It's no different for Penn State either.
Well, that's going to do it for a very in-depth conversation, to say the least, about Penn State football recruiting. It's just, I think it's because it's all at once here. And it wasn't, like you said, we wouldn't be having this kind of conversation if it was month to month. It's really all the span in a week, how all this intel just turns vastly negative for Penn State and the Nittany Lions. Not saying they can't recover, but certainly not how they wanted this cycle to go. He is Brian Smith, the host of The Portal, all things high school football recruiting in the transfer portal. My name is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're not, become one. Subscribe to our YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts. Brian, we'll certainly have a follow-up conversation if and when these commitments do happen in due time. There's also plenty of other recruitments to preview in the process, as the class of 2026 is not over, even though the sky might seem like it's falling. But Brian, can't wait to talk to you again, hopefully under better circumstances. But thank you for the time as always.
Appreciate it.